This podcast is for general information only. It is not intended as a substitute for general healthcare services. If you have medical conditions, you need to see your doctor. Use of this information is at the user's own risk. Welcome to FitRx with Dr. Greg Dennis. Join me as we challenge the standard sick model of healthcare. This is your source for everything health, wellness, prevention, fitness, biohacking, and more. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of FitRx. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Dennis. Today, I am visiting with Mr. Joe Tippens. You may or may not know who that is, but you are probably at least somewhat familiar with his story, and I'll let him go into much more detail. But he is a cancer survivor against all odds, and he, started taking the dewormer medicine, which I know I had heard of people doing that for cancer, and a lot of people really benefiting from it. And he's the guy that started that crave. And ironically, he's a fellow Okie, so he is here locally in Oklahoma for all you local people listening. But he has developed the Tippens protocol, which is kind of an alternative therapy for cancer. And so he's just going to tell his story, how he came about to discover this, and we'll get into a little bit about this protocol. I'm sure almost everybody listening probably knows someone or has known someone that has battled with cancer. It is unfortunately becoming more and more prevalent, and so I think this could be a very important episode for people to listen to. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's just start, back 6-7 years ago, and kind of tell us your story. You were diagnosed with a very aggressive form of cancer. So walk us through that first of all, and what that was like. And then we'll just kind of start there.
I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version because it's quite extensive over a 7-year period in this journey. But in the fall of 2016, I had accepted a job in Switzerland. I moved all my clothes over there. I already had an apartment there. I had my Swiss green card. And the weekend before I moved, I went into a local Doc in a Box because I had some congestion. He did an x-ray and had me look at it. And it didn't look like anything to me, but he just wouldn't take no for an answer until I did a CT scan the day before my flight. And there was a tumor the size of my fist in my lower left lung. And I decided to stay home and try to stay vertical and turn down the partnership in Switzerland and had it biopsied, and it was the worst of news. It was small cell lung cancer. And so I went to MD Anderson in September of 2016 and started the journey of both chemo and radiation to get rid of the big monster. And all was good, except a lot of trials and tribulations of the chemo and radiation coming a lot closer to killing me than the cancer ever did. And in December of 2016, the good news is that the chemo and radiation was successful in knocking out the great big guy. But the terrible news was that it had metastasized head to toe in my neck, my stomach, my liver, my pancreas, my skeleton, in my bones. The PET scan lit up like a Christmas tree. And I don't know how much you know about small cell lung cancer, but when it's metastasized that wide, your survivability is 0% and median life expectancy of 3 months to 4 months. I was told to go home and hire hospice and get my affairs in order. I can't explain why. I'm just wired that way, but I was absolutely positive that I would figure out a way to kick it, and I'll talk to you about that later because it's related. And the day after I was told to go home and hire hospice, I got a call from a large animal veterinarian in Western Oklahoma. And he had this crazy story to tell me about a lady scientist at Merck on the veterinary side who was doing cancer research on mice, and she had implanted cancer in the brain, the stomach, the liver, the pancreas uh, of 400 different mice. And if you went out to the Oklahoma City Zoo, you would find a bin out there that's they bring in fenbendazole by the absolute truckload because they give it to every single animal in the animal kingdom and have for 40 years. It's been around for decades. And so, unfortunately for this lady, all of her 400 mice in her cancer research came down with intestinal parasites. And she decided to save her research. She gave all 400 mice fenbendazole and accidentally came back 2 weeks later and realized in about 80% of the cases she had eliminated the cancer, which was a surprise to her. It was a serendipitous discovery. And then, as luck would have it, she herself came down with 4-stage glioblastoma wrapped around her brainstem, inoperable, and was told to go home and hire hospice. And she decided, what the heck? And started taking Fenbin and a few other things and cured herself of 4-stage glioblastoma. So we knew then, I knew then it also crosses the blood brain barrier. So, you know, I just decided, what the heck? I have nothing to lose. And so I just started taking it along with a few other things, and I can get into that.
And let me just stop you there real quick. How did you, obviously this is a veterinary medicine, how did you know how much to take, how long to
Yeah.
take it?
So, kind of anecdotally, uh, there was uh, rumor, yeah, and stuff out on the internet that fenbendazole could negatively affect the liver. And so I just took it upon myself to take it 3 days a week, 3 days on, 4 days off. I later found out that the research that said it could be impact the liver was so stupid. It was at 1,000 times the dose I was recommending or recommended. And I say, if you do anything 1,000x, you're going to cause problems, right? So I then changed the protocol to 7 days a week from 3 days a week. But I did 3 days a week um, from January of 2017 to April of 2017. That's a point in time I was supposed to be 6 feet under, and I felt great, didn't have any issues. And I went in for a follow-up PET scan at MD Anderson in the first week of May of 2017, and it was NED, no evidence of disease. From wide metastasis and lit up like a Christmas tree in December to totally dark in first week of May. And everybody was, all the doctors at MD Anderson were all, how can this happen? What is this? There's got to be an explanation. I didn't really tell them at that point in time what I'd been doing because I wasn't really sure. And so I went again in August of 2017, all clear. September, they had me come in again for a separate reason, all clear. And that's when I fessed up to my oncologist at MD Anderson what I'd taken. So at
And
that point,
what was their reaction?
oh, really interesting. I found out later, by the way, that MD Anderson was doing fenbendazole research 15 years earlier. And the three scientists that were doing that at MD Anderson 15 years earlier are the three scientists who have now proven in black and white the three pathways by which fenbendazole is successfully killing cancer. To make a long story short, I do business in Asia, I do business in Europe and North America. And without the internet and without social media, my story went global and virally. And I started fielding literally hundreds of phone calls. And So in spring of 2018, I'll admit that I was extremely naive. I thought, well, if I write a blog, they'll read the blog and they'll leave me alone. It was so untrue because immediately the blog went viral in 96 countries, and then the number of phone calls and emails exploded. Um, and I then decided, well, maybe to save myself, I'll start a Facebook group and elicit volunteers to moderate the Facebook group, and they'll leave me alone. Well, that's gone even crazier. So then I got frustrated that I started getting 3 to 5 to 7 new success stories other than me coming in over the transom every week. But as you know, the difference between he said, she said, anecdotal information and a double-blind clinical trial are vastly two different things. And so I decided I needed some way to turn these anecdotal stories, because by even the fall of 2018, I had over 100 success stories other than me coming in. And cancer agnostic, all different subtypes of cancer. And so I got a local billionaire to donate money to the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation to take on the project to start auditing these success cases so that they wouldn't be totally anecdotal, and there would be some, meat on the bones as to what's really happening here. And along the way, Stanford joined that effort, and then the University of Washington, Seattle joined that effort, and then Emory University in Atlanta joined the effort. And then Stanford and Washington ended up actually publishing the first paper about all of that work that they had done that, hey, this is real, and this isn't just anecdotal. We now have hard evidence that this is real. And the Facebook group I've kept tightly controlled so that we keep all the riffraff out, all the multi-level marketers out, all the BSers out. And there's now over 40,000 members of the Facebook group, and over 200 have attempted to join and have been turned away because they were charlatans out on the internet trying to cause problems, right? And in the meantime, we've kept chronicling successes and successes and successes, and I'm now up over 5,000 success stories globally, other than me, and all different cancer subtypes. The scientists that were at MD Anderson and now are in India, they're all three from India. They have proven the 3 pathways by which fenbendazole is killing cancer. And I think they are pathways that even a layman can understand, but you as a doctor will definitely understand. Pathway 1 is each cancer cell has pillars holding up the cell integrity of the cell wall called microtubules. And those microtubules have 2 purposes. They are the structural integrity of the cell, but more importantly, they are what allows a cancer cell to duplicate. 2 becomes 4, becomes 8, becomes 16, etc. And these scientists prove that the fenbendazole is knocking out those microtubules and collapsing them, which prevents the cancer cell from replicating. The second pathway, as most people know, I think, cancer has a voracious appetite for sugar. And in fact, if it can't metabolize sucrose, it can't live, literally. And these scientists prove that the fenbendazole is literally interrupting the cancer cell's ability to metabolize sucrose. And the third pathway, which I find the most fascinating, and why I also believe this should be considered as a prophylactic. All healthy people listening in on this call, you have cancer floating through your body 24/7 at the cellular level. But you also have a very healthy level of the cancer killing gene called P53. And P53 is going through your body 24/7, killing those individual cells and preventing any metastasis to occur. But you all have cancer in your body 24/7. You just don't have metastasis because of P53. And those of us that are unfortunate enough to get cancer, typically one of two things has happened. Either our titer levels of P53 have dropped down to a low enough level that it just simply can't continue doing its job, and that's probably 10 to 20% of those cases, or for whatever reason, the P53 has mutated to where it can't kill cancer anymore. And these scientists have proven that the fenbendazole is producing new wild type healthy P53, which is pretty impressive, actually. And so we now know the pathways by which it's working. I am a voracious researcher. So along the way, in addition to fenbendazole, I researched other items in the protocol as adjuncts to the fenbendazole. And one of them was curcumin. And if you buy curcumin at CVS or Walgreens over the counter, literally you're going to get less than 2% uptake into your bloodstream. It just isn't, it doesn't absorb into the bloodstream, and it's the people that buy that product in drugstores, it's a waste of money. And in my research, I'd found a group that had raised that from 2% up to 15% with a bioavailable curcumin. And I really believe curcumin is a wonder drug if you can get it absorbed into the bloodstream. And so my initial protocol was that product that was bioavailable curcumin that raised it from 2 to 15%. I originally had vitamin E in the protocol. I subsequently eliminated that for a multitude of reasons. So after many years of research, I stumbled on, believe it or not, an Oklahoma City company that had licensed technology from the University of Oklahoma and the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation called liquid protein scaffolding. And their claim to fame by licensing that technology is they can take anything that's not absorbable into your bloodstream and make it absorbable. And they had taken curcumin from 2% to 15%, all the way up to 85%. And so a little over a year and a half ago, I changed the protocol to include their product. I'm not making any money off of them. I just believe in their product. And they also have a mountain of research. There's a Chinese scientist here in the United States that, believe it or not, spent his entire career researching the effects of frankincense on cancer. And like curcumin, it's hard to get absorbed into the bloodstream, but he had black and white proof that frankincense is very effective against cancer cells. And then they had also done research on, I had CBD in my original protocol, but they had really great research, again, from the University of Oklahoma, that it's not just the cannabinoids. It's not all cannabinoids are treated equally, and it's certain cannabinoids that are acidic. And so they developed a product that has the right cannabinoids and frankincense in it as pathway 1. Their pathway 2 product is the curcumin that is 85% absorbable, plus quercetin. And their pathway 3 product is just simply an all natural replacement for metformin to lower blood sugar, and that's berberine. And so I then changed the protocol to the fenbendazole plus their pathways 1, 2, and 3 for for reasons I found in the research. As we've gone along the journey, we try to keep as close a tab on success cases other than me. I don't believe I hear more than 1 out of 4. And so the ones I have written down that I actually know about, I think the answer is probably 3x that. But I have real hard documented evidence on over 5,000 cases other than me globally. And everybody asks, well, why not, if this stuff's so cheap, $7 a week versus hundreds of thousands a month, why isn't this a mainstream product? And it's really sad, but it's true. Fenbendazole is 25 years removed from patentability, but it's not human approved. So to get human approved, it would require somewhere between $300 and $400 million of clinical trial costs. And the next day, the person that spent that money would have generic competition. Well, the economics are just not there to spend $300 million for a generic drug, right? So nothing happens. I am working diligently to get the right political forces at will, because there is one party that would have an immediate payback, and that is the United States government Medicare, which 50% of Medicare dollars are going to cancer, and it's billions. And so the United States government could very well be served by a clinical trial here, because they would have almost an immediate economic payback. Along the way, the stories are really crazy. I was in my partnership is Swiss American partners, and my partners are in Switzerland. I was in Zurich 6 months ago in an Irish pub, and a 30-something female bartender said, "You're Joe Tippens." And I said, "Well, how'd you know that?" She goes, "Well, I see your face on your blog, and I've done many of these podcasts, and people now recognize my face." I said, "Well, yes, I am. Why?" She got up on a stool and yelled at the entire bar to shut up. The bar got quiet, and then she pointed at me and she said, "This man saved my mother's life." Small world. 2 weeks later, in a hotel bar in London, the exact same thing happened. Wow. We have cases literally all over the world, and they come in over the transom at pretty rapid pace. So it's no longer a question about whether this is real or not. I've probably equivalently done the largest clinical trial in the history of the world with millions of people. Now, well, I got a call from a Chinese. I don't answer unknown numbers, because I just get too many calls, and if I don't know who it is, I just can't answer it. But I got a call from a Chinese country code 60 days ago, 90 days ago now. And I answered it out of curiosity. And the guy on the other end of the line had a perfect Queen's British accent. And he said, "My bosses asked me to call you." And I said, "Well, who are you and who are your bosses?" He said, "Well, I'm the editor-in-chief of the Beijing News." I was just taken aback. And I said, "Well, I'm being funny here, but that means your bosses are the Chinese government." And he said, "Duh." So I said, "Why are you calling me?" And this really gets quite funny, actually. He said, "Well, do you realize that Uncle Joey is a rock star in China?" And I said, "Uncle Joey? What are you talking about?" And he started laughing. He said, "Well, a Arizona State University PhD, MD student from China took it upon himself to translate my blog into 2 different dialects and stood up 2 different websites in China. And he said, and the websites in China have had over 10 million views. And I said, well, what do you want from me? And he said, well, we're just curious about a few things. And he goes, we have reason to believe that there's over 50,000 people actively on the quote unquote Uncle Joey protocol. And I'm going, where is this Uncle Joey coming from? And he said, well, we figured that out, actually. Your niece, Casey, referred to you as Uncle Joey in a Facebook post, and the people in China thought that was a term of endearment, and you became Uncle Joey.
Wow, that's impressive.
So I fired right back at him and said, well, if there's 50,000 people on it in China, and China doesn't care about healthcare privacy laws or HIPAA laws, would the Chinese government be interested in auditing those 50,000 cases? It could be the largest clinical trial ever. And he actually thought that was a good idea. And he's running up the chain and trying to get some feedback from the government on that. So
Wow.
lots of crazy stories like that.
Yeah. Well, I certainly applaud your effort. I would, I would say here in the United States, that's going to be a big hill to climb, and my listeners have heard me say this many a times. But unfortunately, I feel like our quote healthcare system is not does not care about our health.
No,
You know,
they don't. In fact,
it's driven.
in my blog, I quoted an actual headline
Yeah.
in USA Today that said, quote, Goldman Sachs says curing cancer is not a sustainable business model. Actually, a headline.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And there's so much money involved with chemo drugs, and it all kind of goes back to big pharma. I'm sounding like a conspiracist here, but anyway, so yeah, that's going to be a tough hill to climb. But again, I admire your efforts. I want to go back to when you went to MD Anderson and they said you were clear. You had said that your oncologist maybe mentioned that that study had started with some doctors from there, but like what did he acknowledge that, hey, well, maybe that did cure you, or did he just say, I don't believe in that? Like what he say?
Well, it the immediate reaction was dumbfounded and unexplainable. The reaction, and I went back every 3 months for a PET scan for the first 4 years. And so over a 4 year journey, it started out unbelievable, unexplainable. Don't know if I believe it, you know. And over time, I would say when I started 6 years ago, 99% of all oncologists would say that guy's a quack. Don't listen to him. He's full of shit. Right. And I will tell you that today, I bet it's over 75% that say they can't say do it because it's illegal for them to prescribe it. It's not human approved. But they can, and they do say, winky, winky. I would do it. If I were you, I would do it. There's zero downside risk, and it's not going to hurt you, and it very well might help. So I've made a huge, huge dent in that to where more than 50% I know of the oncologists in the country that know about it are okay with their patients trying it.
Let me go back to the protocol. You talked about it, and so basically, it's three things. It's the fenbendazole.
It's actually four things now.
Four. Okay, so the
Yeah,
fenbendazole,
fenbendazole,
the
and then
curcumin.
their Onco One product is the right cannabinoids with frankincense.
Okay, and then the
And then
curcumin.
Onco Two is the curcumin and quercetin, and Onco Three is berberine
Okay.
to lower blood sugar.
Now, did you do any of those other things when you did it, or did you just
Yeah, I
start on
did.
the
I did.
fenbendazole?
Well, I did CBD, but the wrong CBD.
Okay.
I did curcumin that wasn't really getting into my bloodstream very much. Yeah, I did those things, but inferior, I would say.
So you were mainly just on the fenbendazole.
Yeah, well, I'd say mainly the fenbendazole is what did the trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let me ask you about some other approaches that you had. Is that all you did differently? As I've been researching recently, I mean, there's all kinds of things, dietary wise,
Yeah.
fasting. I mean, did you change your lifestyle at all? Did you do anything differently?
No, I tell people that I don't practice what I preach, and I say don't cut down sugar or anything that converts to sugar. But I ate what I normally ate, and so, however, I get along the way in the fall of 2016. I got to kind of digress here a little bit. I had an 8 week unintentional fast because the radiation coming in twice a day, 6 angles at the identical spot on the esophagus, 6 times a day, twice, 12 times a day. They fried my esophagus into bacon to where nothing would go down it. And instead of taking in a feeding tube, I made the choice to eat through my fat stores and eat through my muscle stores. And so I went on an unintentional long-term fast that was twice as long as Mahatma Gandhi's longest hunger strike. And I went from 220 pounds to 105 pounds. And I'm 5'10", so I was a pretty good sized skeleton with skin hanging off of it. And so I had a lot of people later ask, well, can't you give some credit to your success story to that unintentional fast? And the answer is no, because the unintentional fast happened months before the wide metastasis happened. So, I went through an unintentional fast, and then I had wide metastasis all over my body, like a Christmas tree. So I don't believe the fasting was part of the success story. However, I do believe it works and it helps, through my research subsequently. I'll also tell you this, because anybody that's kind of in your business is also looking at holistic and naturopathic solutions other than just cut and burn. I stumbled upon a guy after I was in remission. I stumbled upon a scientist at Stanford who's a MD, PhD at Stanford, named Bruce Lipton, like the tea. And Bruce wrote a book after many years of research called The Biology of Belief. And he's the first scientist to connect the dots, literally connect the dots between positive thinking up here in your brain and what happens at the cellular level. And as I told you earlier, the day they told me I had 3 months to live, go home and hire hospice, it didn't phase me, and I was 100% positive that I was going to kick it. And that positiveness is just how I'm wired, right? But I now believe, after reading all about Bruce Lipton and all the research he's done, that my positive thinking had something to do with my success. I don't know what percent.
I'm sure. Talk about what you're doing now. So you've been in, you mentioned before we started recording, maybe you have since that you're in complete remission for years and years. Are you still taking this? Do you just take it
Yes.
periodically? What is your
I,
protocol
I,
like now?
I tell people, if you're in remission, if you want a totally a prophylactic product, or you want a prophylactic product for being in remission from a previous cancer, do this protocol 3 days a week and take 4 days off just as a prophylactic. And if you're active in cancer, do it 7 days a week, without, long term until you're in remission. Right.
Okay. Okay. And do you do all these other things as well, or just the
Yes.
indazole is okay? So
Yeah.
you kind of
Yeah.
do everything.
So the new protocol, I don't know if you know where the blog is. It's mycancerstory.rocks. And there's a protocol tab at the top of the blog where all of these products are.
Uh, and so you're currently doing that, and I assume, I mean, you look good.
I'm healthy
Feel
as a horse.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will tell you, and this is not an exaggeration, with widely metastasized small cell lung cancer in the 45-year history of MD Anderson, I am the sole data outlier.
Wow.
Nobody survives that. It is right there with fourth stage pancreatic. And speaking of which, over the journey, I now have, that I know about, 7 amazing fourth stage pancreatic stories, which nobody ever is supposed to survive that, just like widely metastasized small cell lung cancer. And all 7 of these cases are really interesting to me scientifically, because typically different, colon cancer or prostate cancer, all these different subtypes of cancer, there is some efficacy of this protocol after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And in these pancreatic cases, these were all people told they had less than 3 months to live. And it wasn't killing the cancer, but it was keeping it at bay and allowing them to resume a normal lifestyle way beyond their life expectancy. And they kept taking it and taking it and taking it. And in all 7 cases, and it's really hard to understand why in this case it's different, but in all 7 cases, after 18 to 24 months of being on the protocol, it finally knocked the cancer all the way out.
Wow. So most of these stories that you hear, and obviously you said you see a bunch. I mean, are these people using this in conjunction with conventional therapy?
Well, so in all of the research by Stanford and Washington and OMRF and Emory in Atlanta, they break them into 2 categories. People that are taking it in conjunction with and parallel to, and anything and everything that traditional oncology throws at it. And then they have people that have done only the protocol and had success. So they've audited both. My recommendation to people is, hey, this is cancer and it'll kill you. Why not throw everything but the kit? And I'll back up. This protocol is got 0 downside risk. I mean, Johns Hopkins even did a toxicity study that said 500 milligrams of this Finbin a day long-term is safe. It has 0 downside risk. It won't contradict anything and everything else that the traditional oncologists want to throw at it. So I tell people, why not do it all? Everything but the kitchen sink. But lo and behold, people do what they want to do and are going to do what they're going to do. And there's a lot of cases where people did only the protocol and had success as well. So yeah, I think the answer is both.
Well, incredible story. And it sounds like you are doing a lot of good things. So just congratulations to you, and thank you for sharing your story, and just for opening, eyes of people and minds of people. So
well, one of the things everybody needs to know is I made the decision 6 years ago. So my traffic is so high. SEO people have told me I could monetize my traffic for $30,000 a month. And I made the decision to not monetize it because I get comments literally every week that the reason I'm credible is I'm not trying to make money off of this, And so, and I think the second I do start trying to make money off of it, my credibility will go down. So yeah. I choose not to make money off of this, even though it's almost a full-time job.
Well, thank you so much again for just sharing your story. And I guess it's time to kind of wrap up here. Let me tell people just how to get more information. I think you mentioned it. They can actually find the protocol in your blog on mycancerstory.rocks. And then you mentioned a Facebook page.
Yeah, and it's by the same name. But to get in the Facebook page, you have to apply. And they only allow direct cancer patients and direct caregivers of cancer patients into the group. And you have to answer some questions. And I'll just tell you, and the goal of that Facebook group is to keep it centered on my protocol and not every alternate cancer story out in the world, because there's hundreds of them, right? And so there's a password embedded in the blog. And if you try to join the Facebook group and you don't know the passwords, it means you didn't read the blog.
So they can find all that in your website and the blog.
Right. Right.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, so as we wrap up here, my guests know that, or my audience knows that I always ask my guest if they could give us one health tip that could make us healthier today. What would you say to that?
I'd go back to Bruce Lipton. I mean, honestly, the power of positive thinking, it's not anecdotal that it could help. We now have direct scientific proof that positive thinking, the power of prayer, affects at the cellular level. And so I tell people, whatever you do, don't ever let the negative vibes in, because the opposite is also true.
Very nice. Great advice. So, well, this is amazing. And again, I just really appreciate your time of coming on here and sharing this. I'm certain it's just going to help a lot of people. And so I appreciate everyone listening. And if you know somebody who could benefit from this, please share. And we will just talk to everyone next time.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Fit RX. I invite you to share this with friends and family. If you would like, you can check out our website at vibrantlifedc.com, or you can email me at drgreg@vibrantlifedc.com.